Alright, let's begin. In a letter to Senator Harry Reid, written by over 30 individuals who are but not limited to negotiators from the former START Treaty, military officials and chiefs, several armed experts, and U.S. ambassadors to Soviet states, said this. They said that, quote, New START imposes de facto limitations on such important United States non-nuclear capabilities such as missile defenses. In the future, the nation is likely to need the flexibility of this in quantity. It would be folly to limit, let alone effectively preclude, available options to do so. And when the negative team came up in their last speech and said that this was narrow-minded of the affirmative team to pass this plan, since when is it narrow-minded to protect the national security of the United States citizens when it would be folly to do otherwise? We have to take into account the major consequences these will have on our missile defenses when we cannot outpace current threats from enemies such as North Korea and Iran. So I'm going to be looking over their main points, showing you how right now our national security is being extremely harmed, one, and second of all, that further cooperation will only be harmful to the United States if we continue to concede like we did in New START. Now let's move on to their first point, which was under missile defense. Now essentially they said that the United States and Russia are pursuing talks on missile defense and that it's not limiting missile defense and it's not legally binding. I have several responses to this. My first response is that he quoted a piece of evidence from a government official simply saying, well, it's not really limiting our missile defense. This ignores our point in justification, too, that essentially the United States is trying to get New START passed at any cost. So they will say it doesn't limit our missile defense when it really does because they want New START passed at any cost. And I have evidence to back this up. This is from the Wall Street Journal, published in April of 2010. It says, quote, speaking on March 30th, Ellen Tasha, the State Department chief treaty negotiator, said, quote, there are no constraints on missile defense in the START treaty. Someone must have pointed out the sections in the treaty talked about that limit missile defense because she modified her take. She said, quote, the treaty does not contain any constraints on testing, development, or deployment of current or planned missile defense programs. This distinction is more than academic. The Obama administration may not currently plan to make these conversions, but Mr. Obama won't be in office past 2017, and a future president might want to. START would not allow it. So essentially right now, it's technically not limiting our missile defense because our missile defense systems, our plans are so weak that we already fall under the restrictions. So it's nice for us, I guess. What we see is that under our 1AC evidence, it showed how missile defense systems right now cannot outpace current threats from Iran or North Korea or anyone else, really. And the negative team has never responded to that. We cannot ignore this blatant threat to national security. Now, my second response under this is that they never addressed our point about the bilateral consultative commission, essentially a commission that can reinterpret parts of the treaty to further limit our missile defense whenever they want without talking to the Russian government or the United States government. They ignored this point, and it shows it is a reason in itself to vote affirmative, to get rid of this commission that can simply haphazardly further limit our missile defense and decide one day randomly that handguns are part of missile defense and we can't use those anymore either. It's not a good way to make policy, as we read in our 1AC. Commissions like this before have led to the retardation and negation of missile defense systems, less efficiency, and more expensive systems. Now let's move on to their point about the exit clause, essentially saying that it's not an extraordinary event. My first response is that the treaty text itself says that the United States or Russia can withdraw whenever they decide that their national interests have been violated. So essentially, the United States can decide whenever they want if this has jeopardized their supreme interests or not. The negative team does not decide what is an extraordinary event. The United States can decide what they want. That's what the treaty text states. My second response is that a quote from Senator Al Franken explaining the mechanics of the treaty, showing in 2010 that essentially if we decide we're going to withdraw from the treaty, Russia can do nothing about it. It says, quote, the judgment cannot be second-guessed. Russia or the United States can always make a decision that supreme interests require it to withdraw from the treaty under Article 14, and there's nothing the other can do about it, unquote. So there is perfectly legal for you to from us to withdraw from the treaty. There's no reason not to. Now, my third response is let's look at historical precedent. We've withdrawn from treaties with these exit clauses before, and what has happened when we withdrew from those treaties? Well, this is an example of the ABM Treaty, which we withdrew from in 2002. This is from the Arms Control Association in August of 2002. They said, quote, "The ABM Treaty's demise met largely with silence. Russia, which had repeatedly criticized the prospect of U.S. withdrawal, said nothing," unquote. So we see is that there's simply no negative effects of withdrawing from this treaty through the exit clause. The negative team brought up no tangible problems that will occur. That is not a reason to vote negative. It is a reason to vote for the affirmative team to stop hampering our missile defenses. Now, my fourth response is that in our 1AC, Dr. Bentley Lerner said that these are with extraordinary events and clearly warrant our withdrawal. Now let's move on to their point about verification. Their disadvantage, they simply said that we can't verify Russia's nuclear arsenal. Well, let's take a look at what those verification standards actually entail. This is from John A. Wolshenhauer, Senior Fellow for Technology and Society with Discovery Institute. He published in October 2010. That, quote, "New START's verification provisions might best be called Swiss cheese verification, featuring gaping holes in our ability to verify the most important data concerning Moscow's modern emerging arsenal. Russian rocketeers need merely keep data open to monitoring on 5 test sites of old missiles whose flight profiles are already well known to American verification experts. Such verification is arguably worse than no verification at all. It gives us the illusion of adequate verification when verification is actually grossly inadequate." So that's my second point, which is verification is not, we can only verify 5 old sites that we already know what's going on. And my second point is that it's worse than no verification because it gives us the illusion we actually know what's going on in Russia's arsenal when we actually don't. And so that is the reason why these verification systems are not a benefit to the New START Treaty. Now let's move on to their last disadvantage, which was about instability and how our relations will be harmed. Now, my first response is that, again, they gave no tangible effects of this relational harm. They simply said Russia's relations with Russia will improve. But how much? Do we know how much this will actually affect our policy making? We don't really know how much it will affect our policy making, but we do know that with New START, we will have ineffective missile defense systems that cannot outpace current threats. We have a surety and we have unsurety on the negative team side. We have sureness that we are going to have limited missile defense systems that will be ineffective. On the negative team side, we have a nebulous disadvantage of somehow it'll hurt relations. We don't really know what, there's no impact. Now my second response is again, look at historical precedent. In the ABM Treaty, which we withdrew from, as I read before, Russia was silent when we withdrew from that. And my third response is that they completely ignored our second justification, which is simply states that if we continue to cooperate with Russia, if this treaty leads to continued cooperation, it will be cooperation where the United States has concession after concession. Like our missile defense here, what's going to be next? We just throw it out the window in order to cooperate with Russia. That is not how we make international policy. I strongly urge you to withdraw from New START. Thank you.
Judge, ready? Good afternoon, Clay. I have a few questions for you. First off, about the ABM Treaty, what was the ABM stands for anti-ballistic missile?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did the UN Security Council head praise the ABM Treaty?
I'm not sure.
Did we betray any other nation's confidence to make sure the ABM Treaty was ratified?
I'm not sure.
How long was the ABM Treaty in effect before we backed out?
It was several decades.
Several decades. Okay. When was the New START Treaty ratified?
It was ratified in December.
In December. What's the date today?
It's February of 2011.
So that'd be about 2 months later we're backing out, or so. Okay, that's fine. Now, you said that the government wanted it passed, so they'll tell you anything about ballistic missile defense, correct?
As I read in my evidence, these quotes by the government officials are actually showing that it doesn't limit our current missile defense.
It doesn't limit our current.
Because our missile defense is so weak
So,
anyway.
are you saying you're saying that our missile defense is weak?
Yes, because in response to the New START Treaty, we proposed plans of ineffective missile defense.
Okay, you'd agree that Russia has a lot of nuclear weapons, right?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, you agree that Russia is very powerful, correct?
Sure.
Does Iran have nuclear bombs right now?
As we stated,
Do they have nuclear bombs?
they have shown that they have they have weapons that we, yes, they do.
They do.
have weapons that can strike Europe, and as evidence
Can strike Europe.
will eventually be able to strike the United States.
Eventually.
We have limited missile defense under New START for
Okay,
10
but
years.
your point is that they will eventually be able to reach us. Most
Yes,
likely.
we read
But
evidence.
Russia could reach us now, correct?
Yes, there's no.
Okay. Does Britain have nuclear bombs?
Yes,
And they could reach us right now, correct?
sure.
How about China?
Uh,
Yes, okay. Now let's talk about, you said that the government wanted to pass, you believe that the U.S. Obama administration wanted the New START treaty passed?
Yes, I do.
Very much so. Would you say that Obama
I
tried?
don't know if it was 7 or 10 that how much he wanted
Okay,
it, but
no,
yeah.
I understand. Would you say that Obama had to work very hard to get it passed?
No harder than any other treaty.
No harder than any other treaty. Okay. How long did they negotiate the New START treaty?
I believe it's about 4 months.
4 months. 4 months. Okay. How long did we negotiate the ABM treaty?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Okay. Now, you'd agree that the New START treaty is really the third START treaty?
I believe there were.
There were 2 prior ones, correct?
START 2 never existed.
It never existed.
passed.
It just fell through, basically.
Mhm.
But we tried to get it passed, right?
I
You
don't know
tried.
I don't know how we tried.
Okay, that's fine. Now, you said that the U.S. decides whenever it wants to back out and the NEG can't decide, correct?
Mhm.
You're the affirmative team, correct?
We have evidence to support our withdrawal.
But
as
you'd agree
well.
that you as the affirmative team are deciding that we should back
Well,
out?
the point is that we have evidence and you do not.
But we do not?
Yes.
Okay. What has happened extraordinary since December 27th?
It doesn't have to
December
be
14th.
since December. That's not in the treaty.
Oh, it's not? Okay,
No.
so nothing's occurred since we ratified it?
Well, our missile defense is severely hampered. That's what we have
Okay.
decided limits our missile
Thank you.
defense.